Hello and welcome to another 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video, and in today's video guys I'm going to be going through my list that I'm going to be taking to the Grand Tournament this weekend. The tournament is the last of the summer Warhammer. It's going to be a 50 player event. It's going to be 5 games over 2 days, a proper Grand Tournament. Now the pictures for today's video are just going to be of my general Scion army, and the reason I'm not doing a sort of video going through it unit by unit on camera and doing it live that way is simply because I still have 2 Torx primes that I need to paint up. But do not worry, the list will be down in the description below, and it's just going to be the same picture on today's video, so you don't necessarily need to actually watch the video. You can just listen to it in the background whilst reading the list that's in the description. I thought that was the best way of doing the format for today's video. Now, before we get into the unit by unit breakdown of this list, I just wanted to give a little bit of context. Firstly, around the event, and secondly, what was going through my head when I was putting this list together. So, the event is a Grand Tournament. It's a 50 player event, as I've said, and I didn't know what other people were bringing going into it because it's using best codes pairings and you can't see the other lists until everything's been submitted and whatnot. But now that it has been submitted, I am very glad that I'm taking my tournament Scions because it is a shark tank. Out of the 50 players going, 40 of them are using 9th edition strong meta codexes and lists. We have got 7 AdMech players turning up, 6 Drukhari, 15 Marine players, everyone's got Volkite Dreads coming out of their arseholes. Then we've even got a sprinkling of Sisters and Death Guard. In fact, out of all of the remaining sort of 10 lists that aren't meta, you've got myself using Scions, one other person using Guards, some brave, beautiful motherfucker who's turning up with a pure Lehman Russ army. Absolutely love it. I wish him the best of luck. I hope the Emperor is on his side. We've got one like Imperial suit, which is like a bit of Guard, a bit of Knights, a bit of Raven Wing, a bit of an interesting smorgasbord. And then a couple of Orcs and a couple of Nids, and that's basically it. So it's looking like it's going to be a real doozy. So I'm glad that I'm turning it with my Scions, because the thoughts that were going through my head when I was building this list, this is the culmination of pretty much all the practice games that I've had with my Scions and all of the sort of tournament experience that I've had in 9th edition since the UK lockdown ended. So when I was putting this list together, what was going through my head was I've had about a dozen practice games and I've been to 2 normal tournaments, 2 one-day events. And in those events, I had taken the same list and had tweaked it slightly in the practice games, and I had just learnt some things going in. So originally I was running a big block of Bulgan. You're going to see that they're not in this list. They've been replaced with Crusaders. And originally you were seeing I was taking things like Valkyries. And again, those have been taken out. And now we're just running more Torx primes. And the reason for this was that I was finding the Bulgrin, they were doing great in some of their games, but the moment that they came across a proper 9th edition army, they were a 400 point paperweight. They just died. And so I'm glad that I've got the Crusaders, because even if the Crusaders die just as easily as the Bulgrins, they're only a 200 point thing. So I'm now, rather than allocating about 20% of my list in the eventuality that I come across a unit that can only take so many wounds per phase, like a Catan or Gazgul, now I've only got 200 points dedicated to that particular thing. Likewise with the Valkyries, I was finding with them that I was just slingshotting things forward, and I was probably sinking, between 300 and 500 points into like an alpha strike with these 2 Valkyries and things dropping out and melter gunning things. And what I was finding is I was very rarely getting my points back. Either the dice wouldn't go my way, or my opponents had sufficient durability to be able to survive that, and it ended up being actually a loss for me in terms of points and things achieved. And no matter how many times I told myself, don't yeet the Valkyries forward, I kept doing it. So I've taken them out now so that there isn't that temptation. So we'll go, so you'll notice that in terms of the difference between this list and last list, it's very, very similar elements to what I have been running, but you'll actually notice that there's probably a lot more firepower now in this list than there was previously. So the first thing we're going to go through is go through the composition of the list. It is 2 detachments. We're running 2 battalions today. Okay, and after you take into account the fact that I've taken a Progeny of Conflict for an extra Warlord trait, I've given my Inquisitor a Warlord trait, and I've taken an extra Relic, that means I'm going to be starting with 6 command points. So one thing that I've found with Scions is that whilst there are lots of stratagems available to you, I have actually found them to be a not particularly CP intensive army. Just the way that it seems to go. But so I've got myself 6 CP there, which is a decent starting amount. It's not 12, but I've built this army so it's not super reliant upon CP. Now, in terms of the first detachment, we're looking at Lambden lines. We're looking at Lambden lines across the board. I had considered taking Iota and Gorgon detachment, but it just started getting a little bit fiddly, and I realised that when I'm going into my events, I want to keep simplicity. I want to be able to not have to be thinking about too many complex interactions. I need this list to function smoothly and effectively. Now, you might think that's a bit of a weird approach to be taking to Scions, right? Well, what I have found with Scions is you need to go into a game or build your list with a plan, and you need to be able to execute that plan effectively every single time. Now, most of the time, when you can have a general outline of a plan, but when you go to the actual table, that's when you need to form it. And you're only going to have about 30 seconds to analyse the opponent's list and come up with a good idea of how you're going to beat it. If you've got too many complex interactions, too many, oh, if I do this and this and then use this strategy and blah, 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 it starts getting harder to actually execute that plan. And it's so important with Scions to be able to execute that plan. If you don't, if you start varying from it, you are just going to lose because you don't have the staying power. So those are all the thoughts that were going through my head when I was building this list. But now, I'm sure you guys, with 6 minutes of this video, you want to know what the unit by unit breakdown is. Well, you can see that in the description below, like I said, but I'm going to go through it quickly now. So, 2 Tempestor Primes, both in the first attachment, both of which have got Chainsword and have got command rods. Okay, now the first one of these is the classic Tempestor Prime from Lambden Lines attachment. He's got keys to the Armoury Warlord trait. I've got that via Progeny of Conflict, and he's also got the Refractor Shield Generator Relic. He is going to be deploying on the field of battle, and he's going to be creating a reroll 1's aura and a 5+ invulnerable save aura. He is the only Tempestor Prime that's actually going to be starting on the battlefield. I used to start with 2 Tempestor Primes and only Deep Strike 1 in. I've changed it up significantly. Now we're starting with just the 1 Tempestor Prime on the ground, and we're having a much stronger Deep Strike presence. So the second Tempestor Prime is going to have the Autoreliquary of Tiberius, and that means on 2+ he can do an extra order. Then for troops, solid core of troops. I'm taking 6 5-man squads of Scions. Every single one of those is having 2 plasma guns and a plasma pistol on the sergeant. This is the core of my Scion force. Now, of these squads, traditionally I would put all of them I'd put 6 squads in 3 Torx Primes, and that was how I'd run it. I'm actually mixing things up now. You'll see later on that I've actually got 5 Torx Primes, and I now actually put 1 squad in each one of the Torx Primes, but the 6th squad goes in Deep Strike along with most of the stuff that's in the second attachment as well. Okay, and we'll go through that in a little moment and the reasoning around that. So, 6 squads of Tempestor Primes, of Tempestors, loads of plasma. Then we've got 2 command squads. Now, previously, in the previous iteration of the list, didn't run command squads. With the points saved on the Valkyries going down to Torx Primes and on subbing the Bulgrins out, I'm now taking 3 command squads, and 2 of them are in this detachment. Each one of those has got 4 melter guns. I love these guys. They drop in and they just melter something. It's when you need something deleted, you can just drop in, these command squads, and they're really, really good at doing that job. Another effective use of the command squads that I've found is you use them to bolster the line. So where things are starting to get a little bit tricky, you deep strike in and you can actually, secure your front line. They're very effective. They're very good. That's what Deep Strike with the Scions in general is good at doing. We'll get into that a little bit later though, what I'm doing with all the Deep Strikers. Then as I said, I've got 5 Torx Primes. So far looking at 2 Tempestor Primes, 6 squads of Scions, 2 Tempestor Command Squads, and 5 Torx Primes. All of the Torx Primes have got Gatling Gun and have got hotshot volley guns. 5 Daka primes. Okay, we're not mucking about anymore. I did practice with a list that had 5 primes and 2 Valkyries, but I just found that I wasn't getting enough out of the Valkyries. Again, I was too much of a temptation to yeet things forward. And when I used the Valkyries as roving gunships, it was okay, but they were 150 points versus 120 points for the Taurox primes. And the Taurox primes had more firepower. The Valkyries are more durable, until you take into account that all of these Taurox primes are going to be castled around the 5+ invulnerable save dude with the Refractor shield. So yeah, these Taurox primes give my army the anti-infantry punch they need. I had experimented with putting hotshot volley guns in loads of the infantry squads, and I just found that it just wasn't working. And the Scions are now either taking plasma to kill anything or melter to deal with big boys. But to deal with pure horde, I've got 5 Taurox primes. That is, you know, roughly 140. It's exactly 140 shots. 140 shots, all designed for shredding hordes. And the fact that they have got AP -3 on the volley guns makes them actually good just heavy infantry as well. And the AP -1 on the Gatling cannons combined with the 20 shots means it can just grind down anything. It can just grind down anything. It's really, really powerful. So then we get on to the second detachment. Now, the second detachment, I've got a Tempestor Prime and I've got a Lord Commissar. Now, again, the Tempestor Prime has got a Chainsword and a Command Rod, but he's got no relics or Warlord traits or anything there. The Lord Commissar has a Warlord trait. In fact, he is my Warlord and he has Master of Command. And he starts off on the board. So in terms of characters that's starting on the board, I have my Lord Commissar and I have my Bubble Shield Tempestor Prime. That gives me access to 3 to 4 orders for my units starting on the board. And that's all I need. That's all I need for what's starting on the board. Okay. I've only actually got 5 Scion squads deploying at the beginning of the game. The rest are going into Deep Strike. So why do I need why do I need 2 Tempestors? And I actually find that the Commissar is. I did consider dropping the second detachment down to a patrol and just taking several bigger squads of Scions, but I just found, and I've continued to find, that having the Lord Commissar with the ability to have an order, it just allows you to spread your orders out. It increases your order network by 25%. Okay, because otherwise you've just got it all in 3 characters, and they can't be everywhere that you need them to be. And then you've got to start looking at things like Vox casters, just not as effective as simply having a Lord Commissar down there. He can just do what he wants. You can have a great time. So we've got it's just a bit more flexibility. And again, this army is all about tactical flexibility. Bigger squad Scions are less wieldy. You don't get the free plasma pistol as much with them. So I just found multiple small squad Scions more effective. So Tempestor Prime going in the sky, Lord Commissar starting on the board with the Bubble Shield, Tempestor Prime, and then we've got another 6 squads of Scions. Another 6 squads, and we've got another double plasma gun squad, plasma pistol squad. So that actually means that we're running 7 plasma squads now. I've also got 3 more squads of Scions, and they've got double melter and a plasma pistol. Now, I like having a sprinkling of melter in my army, and between these 3 squads and the 2 command squads, that is 5 out of the 15 Scion squads that I'm running. 5 of those have got melter guns. So I'm bringing a decent amount of melter. In fact, I would say I am bringing more melter than I traditionally would. You see, I used to think, oh, you just want a little bit of melter in there. But as 9th edition has marched on, and I have found I've been coming across things like Death Guard and just -1 damage things left, right and centre. I have found that actually you want a stronger presence of melter. And where previously I'd say in 8th edition you would have 75% plasma, 25% melter, now I would say you almost want 60-40. So in terms of the 15 squads of Scions that I'm running, 12 regular squads and 3 command squads, I am running 5 of them with melter, but I am running 8 with plasma. Okay, and the remaining 2 we'll get to in a moment. But you see, that's not, back in the day I'd run 3 to 10. And now I'm running 5 to 8. So it gives you an idea of how I am definitely including more melter in my list, and I highly recommend you do. It's less shots, I know that, but you just need the ability to be able to drop down with a command squad and just blast apart a couple of Death Shroud Terminators. And plasma squads cannot do that. You need melter squads to be able to achieve that. So that's why I've got lent slightly stronger into melter. So that's just based on battlefield experience. Now, the last 2 squads are just bare bones. These guys are designed to retrieve Octarius data in the enemy table quarters. That's all they have to do. That's all I want them to do. They don't need anything else. If they survive after that, great. But they don't need to do anything else. They're just there to get engaged and retrieve Octarius data as much as possible for me. Now, the remaining sort of bits, that actually makes the bulk of the list. So far we've got 4 characters, 15 Scions, I should say there's one more Tempestor command squad, sorry. And this Tempestor command squad has 4 plasma guns. I did consider another 4 melter gun squad, but I decided that you do need a plasma command squad. It's whilst I have lots of plasma across the other units, you just can't go wrong with a plasma command squad. And I've used it in a practice game and I've missed it. I didn't realize how much I had missed it until I had it. Traditionally I would take all 3 with plasma command squads, but I think now having 2 melter and 1 plasma is the way to go, but having more plasma in the other squads overall is sort of the way of balancing it out. So that's my 15 Scion squads. I've got 13 of them equipped to do damage. I've got a lot of melter guns. In fact, I've got 12, 14, 16, 18 melter guns. I've got 18 plasma guns in this army. And on top of that, I have got 12 plasma pistols. So we're looking at 30 plasma weapons in this list. In terms of melter, I've got 6 plus 8, so I've got 14 melter guns in this army. So in terms of plasma gun to melter gun ratio, we're looking at 14 to 18, but then you've got the extra plasma pistols on top of that, and so it comes to 30 plasma weapons to 14 melter weapons. So that's pretty good. That's like a 66% plasma, 33% melter, which is kind of it's close to that 60-40 ratio I was talking about before. Now, there are some final elements to the list. Controversially, I decided to keep the double smite Inquisitor in. I did do a video recently saying I wasn't sure how effective this unit had been, but to be honest, I don't have a better option at this point. Astropaths, Primaris Psychers, they're just expensive. They're just too expensive. And I don't really need Astropaths in my Lambden Lines army because everyone has an additional AP-1. So they basically all have the ignore cover rule, but better. That's how I view it. Even if you're in cover as a Marine, my Melter is just going to slam through and just kill you. Even with, you're going to be a 6-up save at best. And to be fair, what I've found is most competitive armies have got invulnerable saves, 4+ vulnerable saves for days. And most of that's storm shields and whatnot. And what I have found is that AP-4, you're never kicking someone onto a 6-up save and cover. You're just kicking them onto that 4-up. No matter where they are on the board, they're getting a 4-up save. And that is surprisingly, that's fine. You tend to actually find that, a 4-up save isn't as 4-up invulnerable save isn't. It's not great for armies that are relying upon storm shields. Most people are actually relying upon the extra armor from storm shields and combining that with cover and running around with units that are on like a 1-up save. That's kind of what I tend to find people are relying on. So I kind of felt with the so that was a bit off topic, but I kind of felt with the Inquisitor, he just is 60 points and he does 2 smites. If I was to do the same thing with Primaris Psychers, we'd be looking at 100 points. With Astropaths, they can't smite to save their lives. So you've got other powers that aren't smite. I get that, but they have a high warp charge. I've then got to start looking at taking Weird Vein Psychers to make up for it. It just doesn't work. So I figured I can't actually find a better source of mortal wounds, and I only really want to do 3 to 4 mortal wounds a turn. On average, this guy pumps out 3 to 4 mortal wounds a turn. It's part of that strategy of, if I come across something that needs to take wounds every phase, I can do it with this guy. So he's the first part of that. And the second part of that is my Crusaders. Now, I don't have the full 10. I've actually only got 9. I originally took 10, but then I could only afford to put 4 Flamers on one of my command squads, and I thought, that's terrible. So I decided to drop 1 Crusader, had a few points left over, and that allows me to upgrade those Flamers to the Plasma command squad. Much better use of things. But I took a Priest with them as well, which means you've got... I was a bit umming and ahhing on the Priest, because now this means that this army is running 6 characters, so it's a bit of an assassination bait. But I tend to be very okay with hiding my characters, so I don't tend to give up too many assassinate points. I tend to give up assassinate points if I'm getting tabled anyway. That's how I tend to find it works. So if I'm already losing, I'm giving up the assassinate points. Now, the Priest is there so that I can combine that with the Crusaders, and they're getting 27 attacks, hitting on 3s, thanks to Zealot, full rerolls. Strength 4 means that when you do the maths, you are looking at doing between 8 and 9 wounds to a big model like Gazgul or like a Catan, and that means that they've got they've got 4 vulnerable save. And you're more than likely going to get the 3 to 4 through that you need to. Gives you better odds for doing that. So I tend to find that's all that they're there for. So in total, for this list, in terms of coming across those kind of units, I have committed about 250 points to dealing with those kind of monsters that can only take a certain amount of wounds. So it's not as much as it was previously, whereas previously we were looking at about 400 points, so which was a fifth of my army. We've brought that down massively. It's like rather than 20, I'm looking about 10%. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that. And with the points that have been saved, we've got the same number of vehicles, but these ones are in a funny sort of way more durable. Easier to hide. The Valkyries always got popped turn 1 if the enemy went first, because I can't hide them because they're aircraft. And we've got 12 additional special weapons into this army because we've got the 3 command squads. If you want to look at the difference, the overview, the summary going into this, it's very similar to my previous Scions list, except we've toned down the combat side of things, and now we've just taken what we need for the combat side of things, and then some, and we've increased the firepower massively. We've got 3 additional Scion squads, 12 additional special weapons between those command squads. We've got 2 more Torch Primes, which do so much damage. They're the real workhorse. I think this is the best balance of it all. I did consider dropping all of the combat and smiting capability out of this list, and that would allow me to take 2 more Torx Primes, and that would be 7 Torx Primes. I did strongly consider that. Reason I haven't done it, 1, I need to get the models ready in time, and 2, I just know that the moment that I drop all of the stuff out of the list, I'm going to start coming across those kind of armies again and again. However, analysing the meta, looking at this Grand Tournament, for example, there's only a couple of Orc players there, there's only a couple of Necron players there, so there's less than 10% of the players are running those kind of armies. So I'm a little bit like, am I speccing with something that I'm just not encountering out of all the tournament games and whatnot that I've played, and all the practice games and whatnot I've played so far, I haven't encountered this threat. So maybe I do a bit of a boogeyman, and I'm thinking it's bigger than it is. But what I would say is that you can't go wrong with having a little bit of presence in all of those phases anyway. And I have played practice games recently where I didn't take any combat. I just took 5 Torx Primes and 2 Valkyries. I didn't take any combat, and I just found I needed a little bit of combat and a little bit of smiting to really, just to help me, just to give me that tactical flexibility. So I still think taking those units is good. I'm just not over-committing to them now. I'm not taking, a fifth of my army for that kind of thing now. I'm just taking about 10% of it, and it's a tenth of my army. and it's just give me a little bit more tactical flexibility. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Please wish me luck for the tournament. I will be doing a after action report of the tournament next week, so you'll be looking for that'll probably be out sometime next Wednesday. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.